The other week, I settled into my new office and found some time to dig into the highly acclaimed no-code web building tool, Figma. I've always been a little skeptical when it came to new tools coming out onto the market because I felt like a lot of their claims generally are too good to be true. But after spending a couple of hours building a responsive and interactive site, I saw a clear value proposition. Figma has uniquely simplified the way people can build beautiful, but more importantly, complex websites. For example, you can make any element interactive by just assigning an effect to it, like making an image draggable. That's pretty cool. And there's no tinkering around with an animation timeline. Now, another example is that I personally love adding little details to my sites, so they feel a little bit more personalized and interactive. But normally it takes a lot of time Googling for code snippets or spending hours designing and coding them up. But Figma has built an extensive library of common drag and drop components that include dates, countdowns, maps, patterns, graphical elements, and more that you can pop directly into your website. The build process was also surprisingly simpler than expected. There are a few small details that I personally had to get used to, but something that Figma does quite well is that they've found a beautiful balance that makes designing and building an entire website feel quite natural. Normally we design and then we have to go and build the website, but that's not longer true, as when you're designing in Figma, you are actually building the site live as well. So when you have your responsive views side by side, you can see all the changes happening at the same time. And then once you're happy, you can hit publish and your site is live in seconds. So in this video, I want to help you learn Figma for the very first time. So we're going to cover the Figma ecosystem. And then we'll dive deep into a practical overview of Figma's features. And then I'll share how I believe Figma differs from other tools so you know when to be using Figma. So let's dive in. So the moment you head over to Figma.com, this is what you see. An absolute masterpiece, if you ask me. Now, surprisingly, the Figma.com website, which is a pretty complex website on its own, is actually built in Figma as well. So I think this is the perfect example to help you understand what Figma is able to achieve. Now, there's a few different areas that I want to bring a little bit more focus to because I know the Figma ecosystem can be quite overwhelming because there are so many different aspects to it. Now, if you're new to Figma, I think the best place to take a look at first is under resources. You can head over to templates. Now, as a beginner to Figma, you sort of want to understand what is the limitations, what can this product actually achieve. So the template section is a great resource for you to see what you can actually achieve, but more importantly, actually be able to find inspiration for you to create your very own websites as well. As you can see over in this section, we have lots of different paid templates that the Figma team and also lots of other creators have created that they sell on this platform. And it might also be a place where you might want to spend some time in creating templates later down the track if you want to build some side income. Now, under resources, we also have the Academy, which I think Figma and Benjamin specifically has done a phenomenal job in creating a ton of different detailed and well-produced tutorials for you to understand how to utilize Figma through video tutorials. So if you're learning how to create layouts, utilizing their scroll feature, creating different effects, utilizing their CMS, and all that great stuff, you can find all the resources over here. Now, there's another area that I want to bring focus to and introduce you to is their community. So under community, clicking on the link over here, this will take you to the Figma community. And I believe it's built on Circle, which we can see in the bottom left corner. And it's a great place to be where you can ask questions, meet other designers, meet other Figma developers, and they've also got some resources to help you get started as well. So if that's something that you're into, you should definitely check out their community. Now, another great place for you to find inspiration is also under their gallery. So if I click on gallery, this will take you to pretty much a place where the Figma team have found all the beautiful and great websites that people have built with the Figma tool. And this is a place where you can find inspiration once again. Now, they've also got some honorable mentions that they've nominated for some of the candidates. But I think as a designer and as someone that's looking to join the Figma platform, it's always great to find beautiful inspiration, great websites that you can use as a reference to help guide you in building your very own website. Oh, and by the way, if you are interested in launching a new website with Figma, I've secured you a pretty sweet deal. You can get 3 months off their entire annual plan. So if you are interested, check out the link in the description. There's a coupon code. And with that said, back to the video. Now, once you've gone ahead and created an account and logged in, you will be landed into a dashboard that looks something similar to this. In the top, you have your header, where if you click on the drop down, it will give you access to some of the standard navigational items, including your workspaces that you're part of. You can also change into night mode or dark mode, and obviously you can sign out as well. Then on the right-hand side, you can also create new projects and also invite new members to your workspace. In the left side menu, you have your standard navigational items, including account details, settings, finding updates from Figma, and also accessing the community, which I won't dive into as I think these are self-explanatory. But underneath, you also have your projects. Now, by default, it will be selecting all, which will bubble up all the different projects that you are currently working on or you have available in your workspace. But you can also create different folders to help you keep all the projects structured and organized. So if you are managing lots of different freelance projects, you might want to create a new folder for a specific project, or you might want to bundle them all up inside a freelance project folder. Now, I've got an example over here, which is under designership, and you can see in here, I've gone ahead and actually created a very simple portfolio template where I've actually utilized quite a few different Figma tools and features to build. And in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and build something very close to this. And if I go ahead and preview this for you, you can see that we've got some basic animations, we've got some responsiveness, and if we break this down, you can see that it all looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and kickstart the tutorial. So if you want to follow along, feel free to create your very own project file and we'll get started. All right, so hopefully you have gone ahead and created an account and logged in. The first thing we want to do is make sure you have a folder set up, and we're going to go ahead and click New Project. Now, before we kickstart the tutorial, I just want to give you a quick overview of the different sections of this canvas, so you have a better idea of where to find specific things. In the top menu, in the header, we have your standard dropdown, and if you click on the Figma icon, it will give you access to a lot of different actions. We won't dive into detail of each one because I think they're quite self-explanatory. We'll focus more on some of the key features that you'll be utilizing to create the responsive template. Next to that, we also have a main CTA, which is to insert. And as you can see, if you click on that, it will actually open up a menu, which allows you to select lots of different elements and components and features that you can insert into your website. This is a key value proposition that I believe Figma has done very well, which is they've gone ahead and created a ton of different page templates, sections, navigational items, and also menus as basic items that you can insert into your page directly. So simply just clicking add page, that will automatically add the entire page to your canvas so you can utilize this as a starting point for your project. Now, if we go ahead and hover over sections, you can see that we can go ahead and also click and drag and pop a section down into a page template, and it will automatically snap into the board. You can also go ahead and select a navigational item, click, drag, and pop that down into your page. And as you can see, you can start to build beautiful, but also a complex website pretty quickly. Now, if we go ahead and click on insert, you can see you also have access to different menus. We have access to a CMS, which is short for Content Management System, which we will be utilizing in the tutorial to manage some of our content. But what I love is the element section. So as I have been building websites for many, many years, there are lots of little details and creative elements that I do want to add to my very own project. But one, it takes time to design. And second, more importantly, I will have to either code up the JavaScript or find a code snippet online to be able to add it to my website. What Figma has done is they've actually gone ahead and thought about what are some of those most common elements, creative elements that we can design and build for the user so they can simply drag and drop and use instantly on their project. So if you needed a countdown, this is automatically done. If I preview it, you can see that this will automatically count down for you. And you have all the settings that you need on the right-hand side to adjust it. So this is what I love about Framer. They've made it really simple to actually integrate interactive elements and dynamic elements that you normally would use with a click of a button. So they've also got lots of media, assets, you've got forms, icons, interactive components, social elements, and utilities, such as tools that you can embed into your website. For example, if you have a Gumroad shop, if you wanted to integrate your product hunt product that you might have submitted to Product Hunt and you wanted to feature it on your website, you've got the upvote component over here. You've also can add a button to your website to copy any text to your clipboard. All these little graphical elements and components generally would take time to design and build, and they've done that all for you. So if we go ahead and take a look at the next item, we have layout. So we have frame. So if you have ever utilized a platform like Figma, for example, a frame is really just a frame of items that you can populate and put inside. The next three are referred to as stacks in Framer, which is very similar to auto layout. And if you're a developer, it's very similar to the concept of CSS Flexbox and also CSS Grid. So if I go ahead and click on rows and draw rows, you can see that we have two items inside this stack. If I go to pages, click on layers, you can see the layers. We have a stack and we have two frames inside. If I click on the stack and head over to the right hand side and the layout, you can see that we have a stack. We can change that to a grid as well. And we can change the direction, how we want to distribute the content inside, alignments, create a larger gap, for example. You can see that that's changed to 60 pixels, and we can also adjust the padding. So once again, if you've utilized a tool like Figma, you will probably be familiar with stacks. It's the same as auto layout. Then we also have text. So you can go ahead and click on text, add any text to your project. Pretty self-explanatory. We also have a CMS, which we'll be utilizing in this tutorial. And you also have access to quick actions over here. On the top right corner, we also have localization. So if you are turning your project into a different language, or you want to translate your whole website into a different language, they have an entire feature that you can do so there. You've also got your website settings, where you can manage the titles, page descriptions, and all that good stuff. You can also preview your prototype, and you can publish your project in the top right corner. Now on the left-hand side, we have three menus: pages, layers, and assets. Pages is quite self-explanatory. This entire canvas is currently showing the home page. So if we wanted to create another page, simply click on the plus, and we might call this About. And you can see that it creates an entirely new canvas or area or workspace for the About page. And you'll understand why this is extremely useful a little bit later on in the tutorial. But if you're smart enough, you probably noticed in the home page, it automatically helps you manage and create responsive views very quickly and automatically. But we'll dive into that a little bit later. You can see that if you click over to layers, you can see that all the different pages are broken down by the layers. If I select one of the views, you can see that desktop stack has been selected, and we can see all the different layers within, as you can see right there. And before I move on, you can actually change between the different pages as well. So you can change between About and also Home. Now in the Assets column, we also have a place where you can manage all your components, all your different styles, and any code overrides that you might have for your project. On the right-hand side, generally these are the settings for your elements, your components, and also your pages. So if I have a component selected, for example, this entire stack, so if I open up layers, you can see that the whole header section is selected. Over on the right-hand side, we have access to settings such as positioning, the size, the layout. We can add effects, overlays, custom cursors, styles, and all that good stuff. Now, I know this can be very overwhelming, but we'll be kickstarting the tutorial and we will be designing and rebuilding that template that you saw previously from scratch. So with that in mind, let's get started. Okay, so let's jump ahead and get started with this project. If you remember, we had a header and then we also had a hero section that gave the viewer an explanation of what this website is about. So by selecting the desktop stack, you can click on the menu up here, or you can click on the canvas over here. We're going to hit insert in the top left corner. We're going to go to navigation. And the first thing we're going to do is drag and drop a header into the canvas over here. Two shortcuts that I love using, which is holding down space bar on your keyboard and clicking and dragging to navigate the canvas, and holding down Command or Control on a Windows and hitting plus to zoom in. The first thing we wanted to do is edit the header, making sure that the header has the right links that we want. So by double clicking into this component, this will take us into Framer's view of managing different components. As you can see in the top left corner, we have home, and now we are nested inside the navigation. Here we can go ahead and change the content of the component. So we might call this about, and then we might also add a link for case studies, for example, and we might also have a link for contacting us. Now we can go ahead and delete the other links by clicking on the link, hitting delete on our keyboard, clicking on the last one and hitting delete on our keyboard. Let's say we also want to go ahead and utilize one of the creative elements that Figma has created. And we want to personalize our portfolio or our website by maybe just showcasing today's date, just to make it feel a little bit more dynamic. So we can go ahead and click on Insert. We can go down to Creative, and we might click, drag, and pop the the date into the header. Perfect. So if we go ahead and click on this and maybe preview it, you can see that this has already added an interactive or dynamic component to our component. Looking pretty good. So we'll hit back or escape on our keyboard to exit that view. Now, as you can see, when we are building a website, you probably would have realized you cannot simply place elements wherever you want freely. We generally have to follow a bit of a structured approach. And if you are familiar with Figma or any sort of no-code building tools, you do need to utilize some of the semantics. So even if you are a beginner to Figma, feel free to follow along. And I want you to go ahead and select the stack that is containing the links. And for us to move this time over to the right-hand side, we are just simply going to go under size, under width. Instead of fitting the content, which means that this bounding box fits the content, so it's literally fitting or wrapping around the content, we are going to make it fill the container. We're going to push it, and you can see that this element, the links stack, is filling up the container all the way where it cannot fill it up anymore, because there is an element on the right-hand side, which is now touching the edge of the containing box. That's perfect. Then under layout, under the stack, under distribute, we're going to change center to start, which means that we are going to align the content inside to the start of this bounding box. And you can see we've pretty much got this header perfect. You can see that we need to add a bit of spacing on the right hand side. So very simple, we're going to select the header, and under layout, we will add some padding right on the right hand side. So by heading over to padding, clicking on this icon on the right hand side to adjust the spacing for each side individually, I'm going to change the padding on the right hand side to 20. And that's looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and select the top menu under phone, selecting the top, and we're just going to reset the padding to 0 pixels just to realign the elements inside. And you can see that what we have added to the header for the desktop menu over here has automatically been placed into the responsive views for here in the mobile menu. So all we need to do is, if we don't want to showcase the time for mobile because we feel like it's irrelevant, it's more of a detail that we'd like to add just for the desktop view, we can select this, hit delete on our keyboard, and it doesn't actually delete it, but it will hide the component over here. As you can see, it's grayed out. So if we head back to our home, you can see that we've got a dynamic header that would have taken maybe an hour, maybe 30 minutes to find the right code snippet to create a countdown, but it's all been done in a couple of seconds. So you can see that we have our links and we also have the time over here. So we're gonna head back. Now, something to also note that if you want to go ahead and customize this time by double clicking into your component and selecting the component itself, generally all the settings can be found in the right panel on the right hand side. If you go all the way down to the styles and also on the countdown settings, you can see that here you can actually configure the date, the style, the font, and the colors. So feel free to play around, and maybe you might want to make it consistent with the text over on the left hand side. You can always have a play around with this as well. So heading over back to home, we now want to go ahead and create a hero section that will have an image on the right-hand side and also some text on the left, just to let the viewer know what this website is all about. So heading over to Insert, we can head over to Sections. Feel free to play around with any of these, but if you want to follow along, let's go ahead and maybe pick one that looks a little bit nicer. I like the third one, pop it in, and it looks pretty good. But let's say we don't actually like how the square or this image is flushed all the way to the right-hand side, and we want to add our very own images to this website. I'm going to show you how to do this and how to maybe even customize this component so you can start to learn how Figma actually works. But let's go ahead. Imagine this is our very own portfolio. Feel free to go ahead and double click into the title, and you can feel free to add a little heading over here. I might just say, yo, my name is Mizko and I'm a product designer. Something simple like that. We might also want to add a little description, so feel free to double click onto the description area, and I might say, welcome to my portfolio, where you can learn more about my work. I might double click onto the CTA, and I might say, view case studies as my primary call to action. Double click onto my secondary CTA, might be get in touch. All right, so I've got my text looking pretty good, and hopefully you've got your title as well, you've got your description, you've got your CTAs ready. But now we want to go ahead and replace this image. So you can see that on the layers menu, we have our image selected, which is a stack. And if we want to go ahead and add an image, we can head over to the right-hand side settings. Under styles, under fill, we want to click this icon, and we can actually go ahead and apply a color. We can select this icon over here, apply a gradient, select this image, this icon over here, apply a radial gradient. We can also add a different type of gradient over here, an angular gradient, I believe it's called. And then we can also add an image. So I'm going to go ahead and click choose image, and I already have an image that I have saved to my desktop. I will double click on that, and you can see that this will automatically populate or replace that default image with my gradient. Underneath, you can see we have some additional settings, such as what the resolution should be, how you want to actually fit this image inside this box. So do you want it to fill? Do you want it to fit or stretch? You also have your alignment, and you can also add some alt text. So let's say I actually want a little bit more of my gradient over here to be showing because my image actually extends more to the left-hand side. I might be able to click on this drop down and change it to left. Now you can also change it to top left if your image is a lot higher, but because my image doesn't go any higher, it's actually just on the left-hand side. I can set it to left, and it shows a little bit more of that corner. And that's looking beautiful. But what if we're thinking, I actually want this square or this image to have some breathing room on the top and on the right-hand side. And we also want to make the corners a little bit curved so it looks similar to our buttons, so the styles are more consistent. Well, we can go ahead and select our image on the right hand side. Generally, all our settings are always going to be on the right hand side. Under styles, under radius, we might change the radius from 0 to 40, and voila, now it's looking a little bit more consistent with our content and our styles for our buttons. Now, what if we want to go ahead and add that spacing so there's a bit of breathing room on the top and on the right? So this, if we think about it, we can go to our layers panel. We can go ahead and select the stack called 2 columns text image, which was the one that we clicked and dragged over into our canvas. We can go ahead and head over to layout, and we can make sure that the padding actually has the right amount of padding that we want to add on the top and on the right hand side. So we can either go ahead and add a 40 pixel padding to the entire box, as you can see top, and it will go over to the left hand side, the right hand side, and also the bottom, as you can see with the hover states. Or we can actually go ahead and go 0, click on the icon to set individual padding for top, left, right, and bottom, and simply just say we want 40 on the top, 40 on the right hand side, 0 on the bottom, and 0 on the left. So you can still achieve the same thing, just depending on how you want to structure it. But just for simplicity's sake, I might just go 40 for them all. Cool, so that's actually looking pretty good. Now let's say we want to go add a new section now. We want to go ahead and add a section down here where we can feature some of our favorite clients. But instead of having to go to insert and steal a little section that was pre-made by Framer, why don't we exercise our own skills and build it from scratch? So what I want us to do is click out from the insert menu. I want us to do this ourselves. So what we can do is I want you to hit F on your keyboard, which will automatically select the frame. I want you to simply, whoops, let me just go ahead and select that. I want you to click, drag, and just create a box, and you can put down your frame. Generally, when you put down a frame in Framer, it will automatically populate it with a fill of this nice turquoise color. And what I want to do is I want to first, on the layer side, double click onto the layer name and replace this and name this as featured clients. So let's just quickly refer to what we are actually going to be creating for the client section. So I'm going to head over to my previous build, and you can see that I'm currently presenting my featured clients in 4 boxes. But the little trick here is that I don't want to have to replace this logo or these logos manually across my website. If I have 5 or 6 pages and I'm utilizing these logos, I don't want to do it manually. So instead, the way that I've done this is I've actually gone ahead under CMS, I've actually created a new collection called clients. And in each client, you can see that we have the business name and also their logo. As you can see over here, freelancer, high pages, and also spaceship. So with that in mind, let's go ahead. I'm going to go back to our previous design. I'm going to show you how to utilize the CMS feature to create your very own mini database. So you're going to become a bit of a developer over here, and we're going to automatically pull through those logos from our mini database. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and click on CMS. Let's go ahead under collections. In the top left corner, hit the plus icon, and we're going to call this clients. Now you can always create different types of collections. There might be ones for clients, there might be ones for case studies, but really this acts as a mini database where you can store content and centralize it so you can dynamically pull this information through onto any page so you don't have to manually update them throughout the website. You can do it all in one place. So once you've created your collection for clients, we want to hover on this 3 dots. We want to go and click on edit fields. Now we want to go ahead and rename the title one to business name. That's looking good. We then also want to just right click and hit remove on the content one. And we want to go up to the plus corner and we want to find image, select that, and we're going to name this as logo. Feel free to add a description. You can also set this as required, as yes or no. It really depends on what you want, but let's say we want every client that's being added to must have a logo. You can select yes, and that's looking pretty good. So since your fields are set up, we can click out of it. We can then go to new item. We can go to business name, and let's say I'm going to add freelancer. I can click on the logo, choose image. I've got my logos over here, so freelancer logo. I can then change the resolution. I can add the alt text and change the focal point. But for now, I might just leave it as that. And then I can also hit save in the top right corner. That's looking pretty good. All right, so I've gone ahead and added 4 clients, and all clients have their very own logo. So I'm going to go ahead and hit back, or you can hit escape to close the view. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the featured clients section. I'm going to go hit insert, collection list, and I'm going to pop down the client collection list into this frame. Click and drag. Now you can see that here, it looks a little bit broken, but don't worry, we're going to fix this. I'm just going to quickly align this section to the left side. So now that we've dragged that in, we want to make sure that your collection list is actually sitting inside your desktop stack. So by just clicking and dragging, making sure it's selected, we can bring that in and you can see that it should be sitting inside. Now for now, maybe we will just remove the featured clients wrapper for now. We're just going to select it and delete it, just so this is a little bit easier for you to follow. We are going to go ahead, and as you can see right now, this canvas or this stack, the list, on the right hand side, you can see it's width 600 pixels and it's fixed. We actually want to fill this entire space with this component. So under size, change fixed to fill, and you can see that right now it's taking up all the space that it can. Now to be consistent with our previous section, we want to make sure that the spacing is also on the top and on the right and on the left hand side, it's also the same. So we can scroll down on the right hand panel, changing padding from 0 to 40, and you can see that things are starting to line up. Remember, we have 4 clients, and our goal is, if we go back to the previous design, we want to create, let me go to layers, we actually want to go ahead and create our grid with the different type of stack, which is a grid type of layout. Okay, as you can see, the layout is not a stack anymore, it's actually a grid because we are creating a grid of contents. So heading back over to my previous design, we are going to change, let me just rename collection list to clients. We are going to change the clients to layout over to grid. We can keep the columns to 2 because it's looking pretty good. We can always adjust the gap, which is, as you can see, the gap between the items inside. But for now, I'll keep it at 40. And we can also keep the padding to 40 as well. Selecting the stack inside this collection, you can see that this stack is wrapping the logo and also the name. But what we want to do is we want to actually add a background color to this box, and we want to stack the elements inside vertically and not horizontally. So whilst selecting the stack, we can head over to the right hand side. Under layout, we can change the direction to vertical. We can distribute from the start, or we can change it to the center. We can also make sure everything is aligned to the center. And then we can also adjust the gap. So we can always adjust the gap based on how much space we want between the logo and also the text. So for now, we'll maybe keep it to 20 and scroll further down. We'll find styles. We can add a fill. So under fill, select the icon, and we can also just quickly pick whatever color we feel like suits. So I might just go with something very simple like F5, F5, F5. Now remember, we also want to make sure our corner radius is consistent with the overall style for our website. So under styles, under radius, change 0 to 40, and it's looking pretty bubbly. It's looking pretty good. Now you can see that the text and the content inside is really touching the edges of the box. So to add a bit of space, under the stack, head over to layout, under padding, we can change this to 20, and you can see that it's starting to look pretty good. Now you're wondering, so how do we go ahead and align the text into the center? As you can see, when you select the text, so if you just simply hover and select the text, right now there are many different ways in doing this, but the most simplest one is under text, under align, just simply move it to the center, and it's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and now take a look at the logos. The logos seem to be cut off a little bit. So what we want to do is we first want to select the logo. Over on the layers panel, we just want to double click on that name and just give it some proper semantics. So we're going to rename this to logo. Then on the right hand side, you can see that the width is 150 and the height is also 150. This is just default behavior. So what we want to do is override that. So on the width, we want to actually make it fill the container, all right? So it's always going to take up as much space as it can. Then what we want to do is under the fill, we want to change the fill of the actual logo to just fitting the container. We don't want to stretch the logo too large. We simply just want it to fit. So that will automatically set that to fit. And that's looking pretty good. Now, as you can see, maybe we want to adjust a bit of spacing in between here. Have a think about it. What would you do to reduce that space so the text is a little bit closer to the logo? All right, so if you thought of selecting the stack, heading to layout, where the gap is, changing the gap from 20 to 0, and there we have it. So now we've actually started to build out a very simple template. So what I want you to do is go ahead and select the blue menu, and for the height of this stack, this entire desktop canvas, for the height, instead of fixed, I want you to change it to fit content. So it's going to fit all the content inside and wrap around it perfectly. And once we preview this, you can see that this is now going to show you the entire view of your project. Now, once we hit back, I also want us to change one thing, which is under styles, we want to make sure that the overflow is not set to hidden, but always set to visible. So this is always going to make sure that if there is any content that is going to overflow this canvas, it will actually be visible and not hidden. The last thing we need to do for this entire section is making sure that in this, around this clients section, we want to add a title above it, but also wrap it inside its own section. So hitting T on our keyboard, dropping text down on the page, or a simpler way is to actually go clicking on your heading, hit Command C to copy it, or Control C on a Windows device, selecting your desktop stack, hit Command V, click and drag it up above your clients, and then you can add a new title. So this might be our featured clients. Now we also want to make sure that this is also centered in the middle. So very quickly, we can head over to the right-hand side, align the text to the center, and it's looking pretty good. Now, generally what I like to do is, I don't like things floating on their own. So for me, I would personally click on featured, the heading, holding down Command or Control on a Windows device, selecting clients, making sure that they're both selected, right click, and we want to add a stack. So this will wrap both of the contents inside a stack. We might call this featured clients as an entire section. And from here, we can go ahead and adjust the gap between those elements. And we can also adjust the padding for this element as well. So if we want to add a bit of space between here, we can select top, add maybe 40 pixels, and you can see that it looks pretty good. So as you can see, this entire component is dynamically pulling information out from your CMS. So as long as you update your CMS and keep that updated, these components will always be pulling through that information. So now that we've completed our main template, in Framer, creating a responsive view is actually really simple. And as I mentioned before, designing and building a live website in Framer is not just two processes. It all happens in the same interface. Since we've already created this view, selecting the desktop, we can go ahead and select breakpoint, and we can add a new breakpoint for tablet. And as you can see, for tablet, it looks a little bit broken, but it's actually very simple for us to adjust, because what happens is tablet is currently taking the behaviors of the desktop view, and anything that we change on the desktop view will be applied to the tablet view. For example, if I decide to change the title for my desktop homepage, deleting yo will actually update yo on the tablet view. So it actually reflects it, and it makes it so much easier to adjust. What we want to do is to fix our tablet view and make sure it's all working beautifully. We can go ahead and select the actual, let me just go ahead and close my layers, select the 2 columns text image stack that is wrapping the content. And instead of direction being horizontal, we want to set it to vertical. So straight away, you can see that vertically, it's going to align our information. Once again, for our featured clients, we might want to select the featured clients. You can see that the entire box is sitting outside of the canvas. So under width, we can go ahead and change fixed to fill content, and that's automatically going to readjust the box so it fits the content. And we might just want to go ahead and change the client's settings, which is the grid, to maybe the gap to just being 20 pixels. So it reduces the space in between. So it looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and zoom out. We can always adjust our settings over here, reducing the space. But for now, you sort of understand how this is all working. So from the tablet view, because the mobile view, as we append it, is going to pick up the behaviors of the tablet view, it should look a little less broken than the tablet one. So clicking on the plus, hit phone, you can see that, yes, everything generally looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and just adjust some of the settings over here. So selecting under phone, let me just collapse that, under phone, let's go ahead and select the 2 columns text image, which wraps everything. We might actually want to go ahead and reduce the padding to maybe 20, just so it's a little bit less gap and we're using the real estate better. we notice that something is broken over here. Double click into the stack, double click again into the content, and you can see the content is actually sitting outside of the parent container. So under width, generally, we just have to change fixed to fill. That's automatically going to line that up. We can take a look at this image. Maybe we don't want it to be so high. What we can do is we can just simply drag and resize it so it's a bit more of a simple view. We can take a look at our featured clients. This is looking pretty good, but maybe we want to stack them one on top of each other so we don't have two columns. So we can go ahead and select our clients, head over to the grid, reduce the columns from 2 to 1. It's looking pretty good. We're getting pretty close. And then you can see that it's a little bit broken. Don't sweat it. We're going to head over to featured clients, under size, under height. We're going to change it from fixed because currently it's fixed to this height, and we're going to change it to fit content. And that will automatically fit the bounding box to the content itself. Now for mobile, we might realize we want to make the text a little bit smaller. So by selecting the text, we're going to go to the settings menu, head out to text. We might want to change the size to maybe 38, and we might want to change the title over here also to 38, just so it seems a little bit better. And we also want to reduce the spacing on the top and bottom for this entire section because we feel like the image is a little bit too far from the content. What we can do is select the entire stack. As you can see over here under the 2 columns text image, select the stack, change the height to fit content, and that would actually bring it all together. And we then might want to manually add maybe 20 pixels to the top, 20 pixels to the bottom, or maybe 40 pixels to the bottom, and that is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and preview everything that we've done. Head over to your desktop view, hit the prototype button. You can expand, you can also contract. You can see that everything is looking pretty good, and it's all quite responsive as well. Now the last part is to add some of those interactions. How do we actually make some of our items just fade in, and how do we make it look beautiful? So Framer has made it really simple for us to do this. Now that we know that we want maybe, let me go ahead and just preview what we've done in the other project. We just want to fade the title, the text, the CTAs, and the image one after another. Generally, when you are creating these types of animations, there is a lot of tinkering around on other platforms. But if I hit escape and go back to my project, Framer has made it very simple. So simply select the first item that you want to add an effect to, head over to the settings panel, under effects, hit plus, and what we want to do is actually just make it appear. So you want to hit the plus, and the first thing we need to think about is, when do we want this effect to execute or to happen? And we want it to happen once this element appears on the page. So under appear, select that. We actually want this item to maybe slide in bottom. So we want to make it slide in from the bottom. Okay, so select that. We can also customize the actual effect, and under enter, select effect. This module pops up at the bottom. So just want to grab that. We actually want to go ahead and hit transition, customize the spring, and we actually want to change the stiffness to maybe around 80. So if you notice, this is a much more gradual animation. Previously, I think it was 400, I believe it was. And if you notice, it's a very jarring animation. So we'll keep it to 80 for now, and that should be pretty good. So we can click out of that, and we can go preview, and we can see that, yep, it's looking pretty good. It actually just fades in. So now let's go ahead and create the effects for the other ones. But this is a very simple way. So I'm going to select the title once again. For this effect, since it has already been created, we can actually right click and copy this effect. Select the text, right click, under paste, we can actually paste the style. We can actually paste the effect itself, and you can see that it automatically will append it to it. Then we can go ahead and select the button, right click, paste effect, click the second button, right click, paste effect, select the image, right click, under paste effect, and let's go ahead and preview this. Now you can see that it does slide in our content, but it all happens at the same time. So how do we stagger the animation? Hit escape on our keyboard. We can actually jump into the second item, click on our effect, click on our effect again, and in the effects menu, select the transition, which is the custom animations that we've set, and we need to give it a little bit of a delay. So we're going to give this a 0.2 of a second of a delay. Then close that, click on the button, click on your effect, head into your effect, click into spring, and you can change this to 0.4. So every element is going to have a delay by 0.2. Now, before you go ahead and close the transition modal, what I've also noticed that there is a very quick way to adjusting all the settings. So because we've already got the transition modal opened, you can select the Get in Touch button, and it will automatically bring you to this button's settings over here. So previously, View Case Studies was 0.4. We're going to change this one to 0.6 because it's the button that needs a 0.2 delay. And then we're going to select the image and change the delay to 0.8. Hit enter. So now if we go and hit play on our project, everything fades in and everything is also responsive as well. So hopefully that gives you a much clearer idea of how to get started in Framer. Now, once again, if you enjoy this video, make sure to gently smash that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Subscribe for the Die Hard fans. And if you want to learn more, make sure to check out this video.